think I have to actually call this meeting to order as such. I don't have a gavel. I can use this microphone as a gavel.
She just taped it all down.
But I do want to say I am so delighted that we're all back together. But we're not meeting at the urgent care center or Angel Hospital today. This is just great.
Don't say it out loud.
I was beginning to think that we're all jinxed sometimes being on the board. But anyhow, welcome to Fourth Estate. We're glad y'all are here. You too, Mr. Coggins. All right. So, Madam Manager, I guess we'll just go ahead and get started, and I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about water plant expansion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Team Board. What we have, the first item I'd like to just start on our annual retreat is I'd like to take some time to talk about the water treatment plant expansion and the capital improvements plan. The past several months, the town of Franklin has been working with Martin McGill in developing a CIP plan, and they've been instrumental in helping the town secure funding for the water plant expansion by breaking it down in phases. Today, my hope is just to provide an overview of what we've actually came to so far to learn from Martin and McGill in regards to a capital improvements plan and also in regards to the water plant expansion. The past few months, Vice Mayor Merlin Curtis and Alderman Billy Mashburn, who represent the Water and the Sewer Committee, they've been meeting with myself and Martin's associates from Martin and McGill as well. So at any time during the process, if you two hear me say something incorrectly, please just pipe in and correct it, or if you have anything to add, that would be great. So I want to start by saying what this is attempting to do. It's an overview of the CIP plan that looks at the water and wastewater system financial analysis and capital improvement plan. This study addresses the town's water and sewer funds cost of service and financing options. The main purpose of developing a CIP plan is because the last time to our records one of these were done was in 2003. And it would be beneficial moving forward if the town staff and the town board and liaisons to the water and sewer would start having a CIP plan meeting once a year to see if there's additional improvements or if there's projects that maybe we need to add to our list or remove to the list. Because the approach the town's been taken since 2003 has kind of been a knee-jerk reaction as to there's not an overall vision of upgrades and projects that need to happen in the water and sewer end of it. This also, what they're proposing, examines operating costs, capital outlay, and existing debt. What they're suggesting the operating cost is, in their proposal, it includes operation costs, equipment, utilities, water treatment costs, sewer treatment costs, purchase services, and other expenses necessary to operate the system and maintain the facilities. According to them, what they're envisioning our capital outlay to be, it's a one-time expenses paid with available funds to purchase items such as equipment, water system distribution facility improvements, and water system collection improvements. And then the third component in this study is that they've examined our existing debt. They've looked at annual payments of principal and interest to pay back funds used to finance capital projects in the past. Within this CIP, and you've got some charts here in front of you that we'll go over line by line, what this is attempting to do, the capital improvement plan reflects improvements for the next 10 years, starting from 2015 and projecting it to 2025. The first table, and we'll go a little bit further into this, but you have two tables here we're going to go over today. The first table examines 10 water system improvements that the town staff, and Martin and McGill have suggested that the town should look at in the next 10 years. Table 2 does something similar. It looks at 10 sewer system improvements that they have suggested to the town that will need to be addressed within the next 10 years. There is also one water and one sewer project that are proposed beyond the 10-year period that will need to be addressed, and we'll cover that in more detail. In this report, the top 3 largest projects for the town's next 10 years, number 1 is going to be the water plant upgrade and expansion, and its proposal is at $7,933,050. The second largest proposed project is the Old Murphy Road and West Palmer Phase 1 water line. That comes in at $2,717,000. And then the third top largest project in the next 10 years is the Sloan Road and Roller Mill Road sewer line, which is coming in right at $1 million. So with that, I would like if we could shift gears a little bit in the two tables that I've been discussing. Let's look at the water system improvements for the next 10 years if we could. And that is actually going to be tabled. It'll be the first one, and it'll say right under project location, water improvements. What you're looking at, the first column, cost. So for the next 10 years, water improvements, total cost, the town is looking at, go ahead, oh, sorry. All right. The town is looking at $12,444,268. So what this CIP plan is attempted to do is to break down those costs over a 10-year period. They have looked at, if you will go line by line, your vehicles, the total cost, and this does look at vehicles within Public Works and then at the water plant itself. Vehicle cost for the next 10 years, you're looking at $171,958. And if you'll make a note, that number sounds quite large right now, but it's just from year 16 to year 25, accommodating where if there was a new vehicle needed within either Public Works or the water plant, where if there's not a new vehicle needed, we can at least start a cash flow to start saving for vehicles that we may need. And as we all know, it's hard to get a vehicle for $15,000. So this is just a start. This is just a planning process. The next line item, equipment. Total cost for the next 10 years, they're coming in right at $63,660. And again, you'll notice that's broken down into a 10-year period, and that varies from, that can be some of the backhoe equipment at the Public Works and then various equipment at the water plant itself. Now, line repairs. These are some lines that both the Water and Sewer Committee, our Public Works Director, myself, and representatives from Martin McGill have deemed a necessity to maintain and oversee within the next 10 years. The first one that you'll see for the water side of it is Grandview Court. The total cost for this project is estimated to come in at $125,000. And within this 10-year plan, we're looking at bringing that in year 4, which would be in 2019. The next one, Clyde Street upgrade. That is coming in at $520,000, and you're looking at year 10 for this line item, and it is going to be in year 2025. The next two, Old Murphy Road, West Palmer Street, Phase 1. You've got a Phase 1 and a Phase 2. The first phase we're looking at, since that is a relatively large project to undertake, you're looking at $2,717,000, and that has been placed back to looking at year 10 in 2025. Now, the second equation to that is Phase 2 to that line. Since that, again, is going to be a large amount of debt to try and incur at one time, they have put that past the 2026 mark. The next one, Forest Avenue. It's coming in right now to do the maintenance and upgrades on that for $200,000. We're looking at year 4, which would be 2019. Next one, Industrial Park Road. Again, you're looking at $463,600, pushing that back out to year 10, which is 2025. Now, distribution lines, that's something that's been budgeted partially in this year's budget, and it will be budgeted in next year's budget. That is just various upgrades to various water lines throughout the town. Cost for that is predicted to be at $175,000, and we're going to try and accommodate all that cost within this year and next budget year. The big one, this also encompasses the water plant improvements and upgrades. So if you're wondering why have some of those water projects been placed out to the 10-year mark, a couple of them have, it's because of the debt that the town will need to examine when we look at the water plant expansion and upgrade. It's going to be broken down into 2 phases. The first phase for the water plant is coming in at $7,933,050. Now, if you'll notice, in year 2, there's a payment that would be due of $3,578,750. Now, what that is the town just received notification that we did receive the SRF loan funding for the full $3.5 million. So that is where that projection is coming in at. Now, the second phase of that is going to be in year 5, which is in 2020. So that debt that would have to be incurred is $4,198,750. So those two phases give us the grand total for the $7,933,50. The next line item, the pump stations. This is just an average. We discussed around 75,000, and that is right now most of your pump stations are rather new, or they've been brought up to date to where various repairs have been made to where they're functioning. However, as we all know, with anything, you have to maintain those pump stations or anything that requires maintenance. So what this attempts to do is to break down in year 6 through year 10. You put aside around $15,000 just kind of as a cushion in case those pump stations, because they will start giving you some issues, you have a cushion to fix the various pump stations. Questions on the water improvement side of it?
These are all, excuse me, all today's dollars.
Yes, and they did very conservative figures on these things because they basically said that they would rather overestimate the costs on them to where we could, see that rather than underestimate, and all of a sudden we're stuck with a $500,000 bill. So.
Anything else on this chart?
Figures are mind-boggling when you look at it. But,
Last night I was like, ooh.
but when it's spread out, there's nothing cheap when it comes to it.
The old Murphy Road, West Palmer. There's nothing much been done to that since that was put in, right? So this kind of replaces those lines.
Yeah. That's the section where they've all the pump stations.
Yeah. I know that there's been problems down there in the old Brick Haven on a house, continuous problems because of getting the pump stations and stuff in. Actually, if Caterpillar goes down, the town relies on a lot of that water discharge, and they have a huge amount of water discharge.
And frankly, see, none of that was taken into consideration.
That helps. See, that helps us. Without that, you're going to probably have to actually input water into that system. So that's something we'll have to do.
And they're doing a little bit of that now.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that they keep it
And
flowing.
it probably may mean that we'll have to go back and kind of relook at it a little bit, just with the Caterpillar equation in there.
Even if something else came in and took off the building, the amount of washers and stuff they had in there uses a great amount. And of course, they pre-treat the water before it goes into the system, but they discharge a lot of water.
Yeah, that's another bill we
Yeah.
will get paid.
Yeah. Yep. That's right.
Other questions on this table? Okay. If we can, let's look at the sewer part of it. That'll be your second table in front of you, and under project location, it will say wastewater improvements, and we'll go through that. With your wastewater improvements for the next 10 years, that is estimated cost to keep this up to date and maintained. You're looking at $15,131,636, and we'll start there as well. Similar to the chart you saw before you, they've taken vehicles into consideration. Again, this would accommodate for some public works vehicles, but it would also accommodate for some sewer plant vehicles. Again, kind of low figures. As we all know, you can't buy a vehicle for $15,000, but again, it's a cushion similar to the previous chart you just saw. And that goes starting in year 2016 to year 10. Equipment, very similar as well, just various upgrades to existing equipment that we have. You're looking at a total cost of $28,660. and it is spanned over the next 10 years. It varies from 2,500 to the max looks at being around 3,200. And then line repairs. Some large projects that are coming up that the town should take into consideration in the next 10 years is the Old Murphy Road and West Palmer Street. And if you'll notice, this is one of the larger ones that has been pushed out past year 10, because it's coming in at about $4 million. The next one, Doral Street. The cost associated with that, you're looking at $111,650. Now, this particular project was budgeted in this current year's budget, so we're hoping to have this completed before we get into the new fiscal year budget.
That's what about all the problems with the bank.
Everything's been dead down there. Don't make that happen.
Spring Street in North Walnut Street. If you will look, total estimate coming in for this one is $155,100. It's been pushed out to year 10, which would put it at year 2025. Forest Avenue, that's another large one that we've been looking at for quite a while. Looks like it's coming in at around $300,000. That has been pushed to year 10, which would put it at year 2018. Woodland Hills, $60,000, puts it at year 10, which is 2025. Hearst Circle, $85,000, again places that in year 10 at 2025. East Main Street and Iola Road sewer line replacement, we've looked at that. That's coming in around $700,000. They've placed that in year 3, which would be 2018. The next line item, pump stations, similar to what we saw in the previous chart with the water. You start just a safe budget figure, you're looking at around $75,000. Starting to put in costs for those at year 6. And again, you may not need that cost, but it's good just to start building up your fund because, again, as we all know, you've got to keep those maintained. Any questions so far? If you'll notice down at the very bottom, it says debt packages. And I'll go into that in your next chart in a little bit more detail. But the debt package, the one that's in orange, that is your $3.5 million phase for the water plant, the first loan for that. And I'll go in a little bit more detail in the next chart about this debt package. But do we have any questions about sewer? Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't do color on them. I'm sorry.
I'm looking, I'm seeing them all up going, I've gone blind.
Sorry, guys.
But it's covered in the next one, so.
Okay. Any questions on those projects? Okay. All right. Our
We have
next.
color.
Yeah, I gotta get color. So to recap real quick before we move to the table 3, again, next 10 years the town should start taking into consideration for your water plant upgrade, your water plant improvements. You're looking at $12,444,268. For sewer plant improvements the next 10 years, you need to consider around $15,131,636. Now this third table is your debt service. And what you have, the water and sewer fund currently has 4 outstanding debt obligations in fiscal year 2015. They're comprised of 1 SRF loan for sewer and 2 installment loans and 1 sewer line reimbursement. Over the next 10 years that you can see charted here, one installment loan will mature and another installment loan will decline. And it predicts, hopefully by year 2025, existing annual debt service payments will decline by approximately $346,000, or percentage-wise around 35%. Questions so far on table 3?
Now, this is our debt service for water and sewer. Is anything else included in this? Where's all of our debt service for everything else we've got?
In different packages. And when we get to the budget process, I've asked Ms. Evelyn Southern, who's been working diligently with the town, and Chad Simons and myself, we're going to compile an actual list to show you guys all the debt that the town does have. But this does just focus on water and sewer.
I think we have to look at it overall, the big picture.
Yeah, because you've got
But this is.
police cars and.
Yeah, this is.
fire
part of the
department.
water sewer plant, yeah.
The only other thing, I guess, let me say this, the projects and stuff that are listed there, they figured those projects like, you know, the total cost of the project, meaning that we had them bid out to different companies. Some of these projects, I think we're going to be able to do in-house, which will basically cut down a whole lot if you're just having to pay for material rather than labor too. We're in hopes that that's going to happen with some of these, at least smaller projects. When you get on up to the $4 million project, there's not much way you can do that in-house. But if we can take care of a bunch of the smaller ones in-house, then that would relieve a lot of the cash flow, where then, you know, you'd be in better shape with the bigger ones. And like I said, at first they have estimated these probably more than it's going to actually cost to do them. So that'll help too when it finally comes down and you get your final bills.
Some of these projects that we have to do, too, have been, you know, sewer lines have been in so long, dirt's been moved from here to there, and they're covered over so deep that we don't have any equipment to get to them with, so that kind of prevents us from doing those kind of projects in-house.
Well, we definitely ought to do the ones we can do, because we did put on an equipment operator last year.
That's right.
There's equipment out there that's not being utilized.
Our rate's gonna cover all of this debt service.
And that's something we'll have to look at when we get into the budget process. We will have, that's something we'll have to take into consideration.
I didn't answer to what she said.
She asked how would the rates be affected by looking at these new plans, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to present this to you guys today, so you can start thinking about that, because that'll be something that the town will just need to look at when we start the budgeting process. Other questions on table 3? Okay. So overall, real quick, I know that was a lot of material in maybe a short amount of time, but the reason to do this is I wanted just to give you guys a start of what we need to look at in the next upcoming months. What this attempts to do, the capital improvement plan assumes funds will be acquired by issuing new debt. So to break down some numbers for you further, going back to the water plant, since that's the one thing that we've been focusing on for several months and we know the need there. The water plant expansion debt, to give you an idea of what we're looking at, the first phase and the first payment of the first phase would be in 2017. And that amount for that first annual payment would be $268,406. And that's based on 20 years at a 2.5%. And that's based on a principal amount of the $3,578,750. Now, phase 2 of the water plant, you're looking at the first payment for that debt would be year 2020, and the first annual payment on that moving yearly debt would be around $335,900. And again, that's based on a 20 years at 3.5 with that SRF loan. Overall time frame for your water plant, based on conversations we've had with Martin and McGill, if everything goes as planned, start date could start as early as 2020 or 2015. Completion, which would include phase 1 and phase 2, would be by 2019. What I like about this, the life expectancy, if the town decides to move forward with the water plant upgrade and expansion, the life expectancy of the new plant would be till 2055. Now, what is great, what is really good in my opinion with the state revolving loan fund is your debt is to be paid off. It's 20-year debt. So you will have all this debt paid off by 2040 on both phases. And that allows the town, thinking long-term planning, that would allow the town 15 years of debt-free on the existing water plant, where discussions could start happening about the planning of the next phase and options for funding of the next phase. So it gives you a 15-year window before you, to start considering what you guys would do next. So that's kind of a long-term vision to keep in mind.
I want to consider the reverse mortgage.
Now, Martin McGill did recommend another option that you would have. It is an option without this capital improvement plan. If you did do that without the CIP plan, the projects from the CIP were not financed by the fund that they have suggested. If the town only wanted to put $300,000 each year into this debt service and the different projects, your capital outlays and debt payments would decrease significantly, reducing each year's revenue requirement. But again, it goes back, what's the downside to this? A CIP plan allows the town long-term planning to existing infrastructure, because all the projects, and Billy and Rowan, please correct me if I'm wrong, all the projects within the two charts that we showed you today, they are a necessity to continue to provide water and sewer service to the town's citizens. They're not long-term dreams of, oh, let's just go put a water line here or there. It is a necessity that the town needs to start taking into consideration of funding options and look at those long-term versus just the knee-jerk reaction where if it's broke, oh, we better fix it now. That's right. And then kind of to give you guys an overview of where we go from here, I wanted just to start the conversation today at the retreat, since we're looking at projects for the upcoming year, just for you guys to start pondering, start considering if you like this CIP plan, the capital improvement plan, or if you feel more comfortable with doing maybe the knee-jerk reaction where you do just the 300. What will happen next? We just kind of wanted to give you a taste of what is to come. In February, we have asked Martin and McGill to come and give you guys a more detailed analysis of this CIP plan and the water plan that they have done the past several months. And then once they give that presentation, in the spring, of course, we'll start doing our budget work sessions, and we'll take everything into consideration, and then that's when you would address some of the questions that you have. Questions or comments from our two?
Yeah, one thing I'd like to mention on that February the 6th, when they come, if we might have a special meeting for that in the middle of the month, so we've got more time. When they come and we've got all this other routine stuff, how do y'all feel about a middle of the month meeting?
After they talk to us, you mean?
No, for them to talk to us.
Have one just for that, and we can concentrate on it.
Yeah, rather than hearing from every, all the other proclamations and resolutions and things.
I would recommend that, that we just have a continuation and take this up later.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I will reach out to Denny Martin
See
and
if
let
that's
him know,
okay.
and then when we have our regular board meeting in February, I will place that on the agenda for y'all's consideration, if that's what you want to
Yeah, I
do.
think we'll have more time. I think we'll get into depth about
No distractions.
understanding. Yeah, no distractions. Okay.
Any other questions?
What do you think, Katie? What do you think about all this?
Throw some coffee on it.
I want you to know, some are probably the only one around in 2040.
No, I'm like sitting here going, I'm going to be here in 2040. I might want to talk to my husband about that.
Moving on.
Moving on.
Somebody's got to be blamed.
Talking about buying green bananas now.
I do like the capital outlay plan. I don't like knee-jerk reactions.
You get in a lot of trouble with
I
Yeah.
think that's one reason we are behind right now.
Yeah.
Knee-jerk reactions rather than long run.
Y'all did good work.
Yeah, I think the overall thing we need to look at is the capital improvement plan.
There's a lot of things that could change that would
They're going to have to
put
fly
more
out.
requirements on us, and if we don't have an overall plan.
What if the population suddenly doubled?
You ready for the strategic sidewalk?
Yes, sir. Whenever
Lay
you're
it on us then.
All right, number 2, this is something that we have been working on for a couple months now. Now, this is by no means a finished product that I wanted to show you. But if you'll notice this next handout, it is color-coded, I believe. I can make sure that
It is.
We got color coded.
Okay. What this is attempting to do, the town planner and I and some other staff members, and actually this chart came from Trevor Dalton, who was working on his college project for his completion of his master program. He had sent in trying to help Mr. Setzer and I come up with this plan to present to you guys. What this attempts to do, it looks at all town sidewalks, and it puts them on a ranking for the next 5 years. Now again, this is just kind of a rough draft. There's more that Mr. Setzer and I are going to look at since he is knowledgeable and skilled in GIS. But this kind of gives us a starting point of what we need to start considering when we get into budget discussion this year, is we need to address some sidewalks throughout town. There's different, you can look at traffic content, the current condition, a priority, should it be in priority 1 or should it be in year 1 through 5. Currently, I mean, you can use some PAL bill funds for that, so that is something to consider. However, the town in the past, we have not set a separate fund aside where we could start looking at improvements to sidewalks, or if there's new sidewalk that's needed. Basically, this is more of a maintenance plan. Suggestions on how that you guys would like to see us maybe move forward with this, and things you might want to see while we work on this strategic sidewalk plan to take into consideration.
How are you coming up with the traffic count? Is that a scientific study, or is that just
That is based on, we've got some statistics from DOT, and then some just different studies that we've tried to do in-house. But like I said, this is just raw data. This was just a starting point to kind of show you guys what we're in the process of developing.
so somebody actually stood out there and counted how many people walked by?
Mr. Dalton did that again.
John, traffic count is a 1, like high traffic or low traffic?
Yeah, what you 1 to 5. 1 is the highest priority, 5 is the lowest.
Yes, sir.
Say that again, 1 is
One
low.
is the highest priority, 5 is the lowest priority.
1 is the most traffic?
No, 1 is
The
low
highest
traffic.
priority.
Highest priority.
So traffic count
It
is
would be
high.
helpful if
That
those
traffic
were the
count,
same.
yeah,
We're
it's high.
consistent.
Yeah, we can do
But
that.
1 is a high traffic count.
It's going, but
Hi,
it's not.
it's not the other way around. It seems like it should be the other way, but we'll cope with this.
Yeah, highest is not, the highest is the lowest number.
Got it. Let me watch your lips when
On
you
all 3
say that.
accounts. The highest is the
They're not the
lowest
same.
number on all 3 accounts.
Never right by. I hate in there, though.
I know one I'd
Didn't
like,
ask you.
I know one I'd like to see done is the new sidewalk, and I talked to the state, and at one time they had state money and said if we moved the water and sewer lines and get the easement, they would put the sidewalk from Bear Cove Road to Palmer Drive. That is a dark little stretch of road in between there that is very dangerous. Bright Ledford said he had no problem with giving the town an easement for a sidewalk on his property. The church owns a little corner there, the Franklin Church of God. They didn't have any problem with it on theirs, and the only one that was left was Keith Vincent. And he was taking it under consideration, but I haven't heard any.
Yeah, he's got a pretty steep bank there, it's not flat and level.
It can't be made much worse than what it is now, you know, the way I look at it. And
Oh, yeah, there's people that
most-
go out that way that, they're in the ditch line going out,
Most any of them,
cross over the sea box.
that if they moved it back to put a sidewalk there, I'm sure it'd be restored better than what it is now. And it would also open up a little more visibility as you come down that
You
wide
can't see that?
intersection, because you absolutely cannot see to the right coming down the road.
So wonder nobody's been
Would
snake
it
bit.
would it be wider than what we have now? Because that's my other thing, is like even beyond that coming into town, the sidewalks, you can't You can't even two people can pass without going out in the street a lot of times.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
So to
that-
me, it's like we need to look at them beyond just maintenance, and if we can get help from the state, get the help to expand them so they are safer for people to use.
Bob, for 30 years, I came out there going to fires down through there. I know exactly what it is.
You know, we've had some, haven't we had a couple of fatalities
Yes,
there?
yeah, over the years.
Yeah.
Let me ask a quick question. Somebody I'm sure can answer this. Where does West Main Street start and East Main Street start?
To the courthouse?
Is that what it is?
It's
By the
the courthouse.
So from the courthouse west, that's West Main. Okay.
I knew that. Write that down.
And then one other item we made, that we had on our list years ago when we were working on the sidewalks was to, at where the county offices are now, there was plans to put a ramp right down to the side of the building where the Billy is
Okay.
there.
That one is terrible.
Oh,
And,
Russell's
and,
office, yeah.
and redo the steps. Leave the steps straight across, with steps with some handrails, and then have to take down the tax mailbox, I think. But anyway, the handicap ramp went up, crossed, and came right down the side of that building.
That's like what was Tyler's, how bad it was at Tyler's with those stairs and everything.
And we just kind of dropped the ball on finishing that up.
Especially since this office serves disabled people, and then they have to struggle up that.
We have a ramp that we have to pull out to get them in the front door, so,
One of the other ones that I've seen to look at from a concern, for me as a concern, is when we come down past like Old Town Hall, people have to cross over the street to get to a sidewalk to walk on. So they're crossing over the street in a curve. I don't know if it's something, it could be more of a state type thing. I don't know if there's over the type of sidewalks, but to me, it would make more sense to have that sidewalk continue past the Old Town Hall and down that same side instead of people crossing over in a curve. If they're wanting to cross over to Palmer, at that point, they could wait till the traffic light, which is a much easier, safer to me, because it's actually got stoplights there for them to cross.
Are you talking about right there where the Old Town Hall, where that sharp curve is, directly across where the old Franklin Motel is?
Because they have to cross over and get to that
It is.
sidewalk to go down, and to me, it's very dangerous.
It is. Our town planner, Justin Setzer, and I this past summer, actually, when we were down there looking at some of the renovations that were taking place at Old Town Hall, we actually called and had a representative, Mr. Wesley Grindstaff, come out from NCDOT because that was a concern, given the renovation that was going on, and then we noticed it when we were down there. What Wesley had told us, they said that they would look into it because they had even, one suggestion was maybe even make that where it was like a crosswalk, to where if you were there at the Old Town Hall property, you could safely cross over to that sidewalk. DOT's response to us was it does not appear that that was ever a sidewalk, that it was used as an entrance, maybe an old entrance to the old motel or whatever property there was before that. So we've asked them to look at that. So I'll follow up because you're absolutely right. That's a dangerous.
It's not really a sidewalk.
That was what we were told.
It looks like a sidewalk, but it's not.
The problem that you got right there with that one is that the big trucks that always come up through there,
they can't make the turn.
Right.
And so what happens is they continually come over into the grass up the hill. And if you go down there right now, actually they did all their landscaping and stuff, there were two big ruts as the truck came through. And I don't know how you put a sidewalk around that corner, because if you're walking, the truck comes by, you're just liable to get run over on the sidewalk by the truck. So one of the reasons that the crosswalk is where it's at is because 441 goes down the hill, but then it makes the turn. So the majority of the cars are coming down and make the turn. So you're actually, the crosswalk, as it goes across the road there, it's probably in the most secure place that you can find it, because you've got a stop sign there on one side, stopping the cars coming up the hill, and the cars coming down the hill, 98% of them are making the turn. But yeah, it's just a bad. Well, and years ago, we went to DOT and had DOT come out and look at that corner, and we asked them, we said, can we deed you, can you do something with that? And basically, they just said, no.
Something that came, somebody said the other day is we've got 2 lanes going west. What if we reversed it and had 1 lane going west and 2 lanes going east, so that the trucks could have a much wider turn there? If we could funnel, and I've also had some people lately said, what if you funnel all traffic straight into 1 lane? That would, I don't know, anyhow, that's just something that folks have said that we might want to consider. But we do have 2 lanes going west. Or what if we had 1.5 lanes, just do away with 1 of the lanes going west?
That wasn't me.
But you do.
Set off all the alarms, okay, fine. I wanted to know where
That's a difficult area, because that's
where's that Main
the
Street
normal
you're
road
talking
turns
about?
left, and if you want to go
Down
down
the town hall.
down Back Street behind.
I know
Ace,
Norrell
you've
talked
got
to me.
some straightaway.
Yes, a lot of people take it.
It's also state and
Which
federal
they-
highway.
Yeah, it's getting a little iffy.
Our jurisdiction is real
That's a lot
fuzzy
of traffic to put into 1 lane.
when it comes to that sort of street, so.
Well, that's about the only way to get to 28. I mean, there's no other good road unless there was a bypass around Franklin that got down that way.
Used to be, originally it was Maple Street.
Well, that was the original bypass, sort of,
Yeah.
was it, as it came through. Maple Street, that did.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, that 10-year TIP, or 20-year TIP that they did years ago.
So the non-sidewalk, is that part of the old hotel property, or is that town property? Or state property, or?
It's a good question, probably.
From what, when we were out there that day looking, because it's very funny, because it looks like it would be sidewalk, but then when you stand there and look at it, you can tell the difference. From what we looked at on some mapping, it does look like it would be the property owner right there. And that was the suggestion that a couple of individuals from DOT said to us, that probably was maybe at one time an entry or an exit for either, I don't know, years ago, I don't know if there was ever a home there or if it's always been a hotel, but that's what it said. It appeared to them that at one time that had been a driveway.
I can see the motel putting it in.
You gotta get people to town, yeah.
On the back was a curve there. There's actually a curve that goes
I'm
up.
going to have to take a ride over
Takes a
there.
little bit, yeah. Yeah, that's the, yeah.
I can't remember through the years, do you remember anything?
Yeah, and I lived there and
being
walked back
there?
and forth across that
Well, I
intersection.
found out there was a house there.
Okay.
I was about 3 or 4
About
years
7
old.
years.
Too many years.
I lived down there.
Yeah. Too many sticky figures.
All right.
I think it was a blacksmith shop.
I was down next to my house. It was a blacksmith.
And where was your house?
Oh, was it
A
John?
little white house there next to the lighting center.
Oh, that one?
Yeah, that's where I was born.
Next page, okay.
Right in the heart of town.
See, that used to be, let's see, you had Miss Murray's property in there behind.
Now, that's
You had-
the old lady big
yeah,
rock.
You had the Norton's, Pascal Norton's car lot.
Carla, yeah.
What was beyond that, I can't remember. The car lot was right next to our house.
When the Conley's bought down at the corner, they put in the car lot there, and Pascal went on the
Yeah,
other side of them.
yeah.
Wow, lots of stuff.
Is this
Across the
helpful?
street was the auto park.
Yes, it
Is this helpful? Like I said, this is just a work in progress.
It's
So
good to have a plan to show people. this concerns everybody.
Everybody talks to us, yes.
Yeah.
And when you do get those, if you'll just let us know sidewalks, we'll be glad to, that you have issue like those. This was some really healthy conversation. We'll be glad to work this into the plan, but I just want to, again, kind of give you a little taste of something we're working on that will be much more detailed and will take some things into consideration.
You know, another comment, Harrison Avenue, most of the sidewalk is in pretty good shape, but there's a few places where, at one night I tripped, because there's no light there. Yeah, one of them's sunk, and there's, you know, you're walking along talking to somebody not paying attention, and suddenly you have this uneven pavement, and then there's maybe another place or two where the sidewalk's all broken up because somebody's parked on it. But the whole thing doesn't need repair, but just a couple of places would really make a big difference. So I'm thinking instead of just entirely doing, which I think these two are really needed, if there were some way to do the worst pieces of another stretch.
At Lakeside Drive is headed at 2. I'd almost put it at a 1.
Okay.
I've had several people say that so many young kids come out from Town Mountain to go to school because they're walking distance, and that sidewalk is unbelievable there on that area. It really is bad.
Well, you know, and also, there's some places in town I've noticed that the sidewalk just needs to be cleaned up. I mean, it's not that the concrete's broken to any discernible degree, but you've got grass growing halfway down on the sidewalk. You know, it needs to be cut back, and then you've just got all this debris, you know, that probably just needs to be
shrubs that
yeah.
They're more enthusiastic in their growth, and then they take up half the sidewalk.
Half the sidewalk, that's right.
And other ones with thorns on them, those are really fun.
The other thing I wanted to talk, two more things that I wanted to talk to you about that does fit under sidewalk. One thing I wanted to kind of just start discussion on, and again, you know, as we move through this upcoming, the end of this fiscal year and we prepare for the next fiscal year, wanted to kind of just generate some discussion from the board, thoughts on the crosswalks that are in town. You know, again, those are DOT, so this would be a project that we would need to consult with DOT and get their take, some of their recommendations. But a couple of things we've been looking at the past few months, brick pavers versus the stamped look, the stamped concrete look that makes it look like brick pavers. Something else that I noticed, and I believe, Patty, you brought it up to me too, maybe a month or so ago, down in Georgia at Clayton, I saw something really neat last weekend, and then Patty had told me about it a few months ago. They actually have on their crosswalks little solar panels, so at night it eliminates the the crosswalk, and that just seemed very helpful just for increased pedestrian traffic. And it was nothing raised, but it just gave that.
It gives a little flash so people know that there's still a crosswalk and it's solar. So.
And maybe we'd actually get people walking around at night.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Well, even, and I know it's an issue with scraping the road, but if you had raised areas, but also, especially on Main Street, could be used as traffic center. But that's one of the things we want to look at, is how do we reduce the speed?
Exactly.
And that's what you see in a lot of places. And the thing is, you know, they have them around schools and intersections out in the county, and if it snows, they scrape those, and nothing comes up.
Do they have some raised at the ring?
Yeah. You come out of Wells Road down here, down the garden, you get into that, you start hitting them.
Oh, the one that checks you, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I just happened to be cruising around Durham the other day with my nephew, and I did notice sort of the same thing in some of the places down there. The crosswalks looked like, and I'm not sure if they were pavers or not, they looked like they're pavers, they could have been stamped. But they were all delineated to where you could see them, you know, from a long ways off. There was something across the road. The other thing about it is, I did notice that in several places there was a very gentle raise on them. That's just, and it's not much, just maybe a couple of inches, but just enough for you to tell when you start. And of course, there's signage all over the place down there that basically says that you have to stop. state law requires you to stop for testing. You know, and a lot of the
That's a good one,
students are
too.
going from building to building, you know, and using the crosswalks to get across. So they've got signs all over the place down there. But I did notice it, you know, it raises up just a little bit, and then it kind of flattens out for about 8 feet, and then it eases you back down again. So when you,
Those is traffic calming.
yeah, you could hit it at 60 miles an hour and think, damn, why did I do that? But and it wouldn't tear your car all to pieces. But at the same time, there's enough of it there for you to
To make
realize
you-
what's going on.
That's kind of like.
Westminster had
It was
that.
like that.
Yeah,
And they
I like
have like the
Westminster.
little
Beautiful.
Right.
signs right in the middle that
Every week
says
or two.
you have to slow down.
Right.
I've got pictures of all those I can send.
I noticed in some places, like in Florida, for example, everyone stops for pedestrian. I mean, everybody stops for pedestrian. I was
Listen, we
very
used
impressed.
to stop downtown. I mean, when I took my driver's training, that's one thing Frank Ramsey, he'd stop that brake and you'd cut a screeching halt. But we always let people cross downtown. I don't know what happened in the last
It's just terrible.
15,
People
20
act
years.
like
Manners,
they're doing you
they've
a
lost their
favor
manners.
that you cross the street.
I think what's happened, Billy, is that towns like Franklin over the years built the infrastructure to move cars and not
Oh,
pedestrians.
yeah. No.
And one of the things that's coming back, particularly the small town in America, that's making it more attractive is walkability.
Right,
And now we've got to take your life in your hands.
Well, I remember when I stopped, the person behind me always just like throwing up their hands
Yeah.
like, why are you stopping?
Why are you
Well,
stopping?
There's a person in front of me.
People are expendable.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combination of
Yeah.
the traffic calming measures, the visual signs, so people know that the crosswalk is there, and enforcement. You've got to, I mean, when I walk, sometimes I see law enforcement people speeding down Main
Yes.
Street, and I have to wait for them to go by. They should be setting an example.
Let me throw this out. I know we can't take the vote, but what would be the consensus of the board to talk about prioritizing these crosswalks and moving on it? Because I don't know about everybody else, but I hear more about that than any other one thing right now from residents.
I think it's terribly important.
Well, I like to
We
see
don't
us
want
do
people to
something,
get killed on Main
this
Street.
year with crosswalks.
Yeah.
But I'd also like it to be part of a traffic calming
Mhm.
scenario for
It's-
Main Street and for Town Hill. And I know David is looking at some things that are out there. You know, speed bumps are not the way to do it, but traffic calmers act the same way.
Is that
And
like
then-
the
Oh,
bulb
I hate
outs that we
speed
did?
bumps. I
about?
hate those,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. The bulb outs?
Yeah.
Well, he's talking about something.
Yeah.
Speed hump,
Speed hump.
you know, it's
Which
not.
is something similar to
not
what
dirt
we're
thing,
talking
but
about.
it does have.
Well, that lets you know that you're coming into somewhere you've got to slow down.
I think, you know, at the top of Town Hill, it's such a problem because in the afternoon when the sun is going down,
Oh, you can't.
drivers are almost blinded.
Right.
And I realize they can't see me. I mean, so you've got a double whammy there. They don't want to stop anyway, but then
And you're
they can't
blinded.
see you.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you can,
And they're going at a pretty
Yeah,
And
they're
of
going
course, if
so-
they were going at
Speed.
20, it would make a big difference instead of 40.
yeah, exactly. You'd have a better fighting chance.
I think we're very lucky in Franklin. We haven't had a fatality already. There's so many people walk right out between the cars, have no regard. Even if you had sidewalks, they're not going to use them. And you can go down that street anytime you want to, and you'll see more people crossing where there is no crosswalk than you do in all the crosswalks. But they just come right out from between the cars and
Yeah, you
They
can't
may
see
have
them.
learned
and
that
they're out in the
people in the
road.
crosswalk, nobody
Like
pays
you
any
see it in
attention to
Dillard,
it. So
Georgia.
what
But
they're-
maybe if we had a crosswalk to delineate what, then they would
Jaywalking?
gravitate.
Yeah, they've got, I mean,
The other thing that
they,
people do
you know,
is-
anybody that crosses the street,
The
you have to
other
stop it.
lanes,
And they,
when they
you
get
start
out,
getting
like
into
two
Dillard, they
lanes,
start
they
telling you
stop.
right away.
Yeah, they're big.
You gotta stop at all intersections.
I thought you were.
And you don't
Tell
see
that
anybody crossing except at the intersections.
And they give tickets for it.
Oh, yeah.
For jaywalking.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
they
for,
give
no,
tickets
for not
for
stopping.
Oh.
Not stopping for,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, not stopping for.
Well,
pedestrian.
and jaywalking too, you know, I've been going along and hear a police officer yell, you know, hey, get back, you're not, and just, stand up straight.
Well, I would never jaywalk.
Me neither.
No, never.
So what if it's more convenient? You're so
Neither would
good.
the town manager.
I walk with him down the road.
Squealer.
I'm sitting there hitting the buttons and he's already halfway across the crosswalk. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Those buttons.
All right, so
Yeah.
I guess that we're all pretty much in consensus, this is a real priority.
Main Street.
Is the crosswalks on
In
Main
town.
Street. Great.
One other thing to note on this, and it's ironic you brought that up because that was on my note. I actually had spoke to DOT. They are willing to, if we do want down the road when we look at this further, they are willing to provide signs. That is something I had spoke with them last week about. If we need that as, starting the calming factor when we start up Town Hill, that they would be willing to work with us there, that they'd provide to us.
Are they willing to put it in the middle of the street?
Now that I don't know.
Because I
Yeah.
honestly don't think people see signs when you've
Oh,
got
they're
all
off to the
these
side.
lamp posts
Yeah.
and everything else.
Everything just
That's
kind of
true.
blends.
I'll have-
I still want to stand out in the middle of the street and slow down.
Yeah.
They think they've run over somebody and they slow down.
Okay, does that take care of that?
I've got one more thing.
Okay.
Sorry, it was kind of
That's all
like a
right.
threefold since it all kind of ties into the sidewalk discussion. The third thought that I just wanted to bring up for discussion, something that we can all look at in the upcoming year, brick pavers on Main Street. Something to consider, and it goes back to this, the strategic plan we're looking at, and even just connectivity and pedestrian crossing. There are some areas on Main Street that are pretty bad when it comes to sidewalks. There's sinking, there's trip hazards I've noticed on several sides. So something to consider is maybe brick pavers to make it flow. That is in your master plan that the Main Street program started working on years ago. We've kind of talked with some different individuals to get some different takes, just something we can look at in future months or at your discretion. But what we had considered was you start right up here at the gazebo in front of Fresh Eggs. On the right side of the sidewalk, you would start from Fresh Eggs, bring it all the way down to this entry level right here at Town Hall. And that would be one side of brick pavers. On the opposite side of the street, you would start directly across the street at Macon County Emergency Services and take it from that point all the way down to Anna Bedell's. So that's just something to consider.
Well,
Now
it would
there's,
look good because it's blended then.
it would be blended.
Continuation of what we already have out there.
And there's two options to consider when we maybe get into this further down the road. One option is you can break up the existing sidewalk and put down the fresh pavers, or you do have the option of the stamped approach. The second option is you can actually, there's a mechanism now to where you can actually put down on top of the brick pavers. There's some pros and cons to that. Pro would be quicker turnaround. The con, how does that change your elevation? So there's pros and cons to both, but something just, I just want to throw an idea out there, maybe to start considering. And of course, we would need to take into consideration, if we could look at an off-season for merchants on Main, something that we could start planning for. But I just wanted to throw that out and just maybe get you guys' thoughts on it.
Throw out another idea too. It's up on Ola Street between the gazebo and the courthouse. If we could do something with that to where it converts into a court, an open court, like pavers are right there between the gazebo and the courthouse, the street there, that
Oh,
one
okay.
block.
Okay.
Where you could, we do so much, if we could do something to make that kind of like a court, but yet we still use it for traffic during the regular day. We got a lot of ideas floating around now, where we're going to get the money.
Isn't that coming from you? Your big bucks you make, Mr. Mayor?
Well, that all comes onto the table.
You probably need to prioritize that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
just consideration.
Traffic calming on Main Street is unheard.
We're going to see maybe some changes too, because that bank has been sold down the corner.
Yeah.
And no telling what they're going to do down there. So hopefully it'll be something that'll perk up that area that's been sitting, looking neglected for so long. So,
Well, that's quickly becoming the center of all kind of attractions and then festivals and everything.
Yeah,
So-
uh-huh.
And it should be.
uh-huh.
And one thing to consider with funding, and I had a note and I skipped over it, so I was going to bring it to the end, but I think this would be an appropriate place. One thing to consider now, even at the water plant and the CIP plan, sidewalks, we are now a tier 1. So there are some grant funding available. And at some discussions we've had with Martin McGill, going back a little bit to the water plant, they said that there would be additional grant funding now. The sidewalks, we could explore some of those options.
That'd be great, yeah. I hate that we went to a 1, but let's take advantage of it while we can.
Yeah, because we were stuck at it too, we couldn't get it out or anything.
No.
Anything else on that? Those are just my 3 kind of chopped into one.
Mr. Mayor.
You might know how to take the battery out of one.
Toilet works higher than
That's why I make a stop.
Excuse me. The check's in the mail. Okay. All right, where are we now? Update on computer software. Okay.
Yes, sir. What we've been looking at, the current software that the town uses for accounting purposes and also for utility billing and tax billing it's called CSI. It's not the crime scene investigation, but it's CSI, Computer Solutions Innovation. The past 2 days, this past week, on Tuesday and Wednesday, town staff went through extensive 2 full days of training on this software, and it was very enlightening on the different capabilities this current software has. One thing that is available to the town is there's never been any upgrades to this current software, and in 2009 records indicate that the town did purchase a plan that would allow for the town to get a discounted rate to where if the current CSI ever upgraded to a new model, we could get the new model at a discounted rate. So in 2009, the town did pay this. There is a new version available. It's called Smart Fusion. It's basically CSI on steroids, if you will. It takes a product that it's over 20 years old and kind of accommodates it to today's model. A couple things that our current CSI system does do, and even Smart Fusion, is it does have the capability to offer online bill pay for utility and tax customers, and it also has the ability to accept credit card and debit card payments for walk-in customers.
So that would ease a lot. So many people are so used to being able to do that.
Be a real service to customers.
But I just wanted to give you guys kind of an update, something that we're looking at in-house, the different capabilities, and then I thought it was a good note to make that in 2009 the town did purchase that extension to where if there was a new version, you got it at a discounted rate.
But we never used it.
Yes, ma'am.
How old is our present system?
Presently, we have been using it CSI Plus for 11 years. CSI, and Chad, correct me because you were in there too. CSI Plus has been on the market for over 20 years. Smart Fusion, which is a collaboration of that, just a higher version, has been on the market for, this will be going into its 3rd year.
Would it not be a cost savings in the long run to us?
Huge cost savings.
To go with the Smart Fusion?
Yeah, it's got
You got to go
all
with what's
kinds
going on.
of positives on it. I learned when I talked with them down at one of the municipalities that we were using about 10% of the capabilities of the
I got
program
to
we
feel
had.
free on the computer.
It's a wonder it can save us a lot of time and money in the future and allow a lot of different actions.
And also a great thing that it does provide us, the CSI Plus that we're in and Smart Fusion, is there was an issue before where we weren't aware of how to allow, or if the system could accommodate automatic posting, where if you accept revenue one day, it may take some time before it could post to General Ledger. There is the capability with CSI and Smart Fusion to have that in instantaneous, where it's automatically taking a revenue, so you have a balance. You have a balanced General Ledger throughout the year.
Is that something we could bring up at our next meeting to vote on?
Sure, and like I said, this is just something I just wanted to kind of start. Yeah.
No, I know we can't
Right.
vote it, but it is something that we can bring up.
It's part of our budget
Budget.
process.
But, so just some things we've been looking at, but I thought you guys.
It's not we enter the 21st century.
Yeah, exactly, we're way
The
past.
county goes.
Okay, any further on that? Well, let's move on to the budget priorities.
Just a couple that I had, and I wanted to get the board's thoughts as well. Basically, a recap of some of the things we've talked about and discussed today. One thing to consider going into the new budget and when we start our budget work sessions is the water plant upgrade and expansion, how that's going to affect the town budget. Consideration of the CIP plan, the brief overview I gave you, and then we'll dive further in as the year progresses. Then consideration of your sidewalk plan, crosswalks, and brick pavers. And then also, just general budgetary items such as the software upgrades, just items I wanted to make you guys aware of when we start having these discussions, if I could get input, just something we're looking at to share with you some ideas that we have.
Are we saying, Summer, just so I can make sure, the software couldn't be done until the new budget?
When we asked, what they said was the Smart Fusion, it is anywhere from 6 months to 1 year out to when, because they offer, if you upgrade at that discounted rate we bought into, it takes the whole process between 6 months of a year from start to finish, where they integrate all the system, they upgrade all the system, they do on-site training, so you're at least 6 months to a year out. That's why I wanted to start having these.
Right. But it's not the financial necessary, it's the training and the upgrading of the system.
Yes, ma'am.
Our hardware that we have now can handle it.
Yeah, I think we want our new finance person to be on board by the
Yes, sir.
time we get that.
Yeah.
Okay, does that take care of that?
Yes, sir.
All right, that brings us down to other considerations and discussions. And so kind of what someone I talked a little bit about was just throwing it out for all the board members to bring up any concerns or ideas or whatever. Just go around the table here. Billy, you want to start it off?
I've been asleep for the last 6 months, so I'll let somebody else go.
I know better than that. Barbara?
I am the representative from the board to the Frogs, Friends of the Greenway. And because of my being asleep for the last few months, I have missed several of their meetings. And it looks like I might be missing future meetings for several months because of the scheduling problems that I have. And I wondered if, the town could have someone else to represent the town, because right now, I think it's critical. I think Frogs really needs an infusion of ideas and cash and some assistance that the town is in a position maybe to help with it. And it wouldn't be in a position to us if somebody would like to do that.
Barbara, when did they meet?
That was the problem with me,
Yeah.
because I was originally supposed to be on it, but they meet on Tuesdays at 2 o'clock.
Yeah,
which
it's a weird
I have to go
time,
pick up
and-
my
Yeah,
daughter, and
people who work.
it doesn't work.
Yeah,
I
it's a
couldn't
very
make it
strange
work in my
time.
schedule.
And see, Tuesday's the day I was having chemo, so I was always in conflict right there. But I suggested maybe Dustin, it wouldn't have to be a board member, but if somebody on the board would like to
Well, somebody we
participate.
feel would be a good,
Yeah, who could offer something, and they're really trying to become more business-like. They don't get money from the county. The county money goes directly to their maintenance person, which Terry Browning, so that's what the town does, is just supply the maintenance person. So everything else has to be generated by Frogs. And there's just, like most organizations, this small group, and they're getting older, and it's just really,
so we really need some of these young people.
well, just somebody who has some energy and is willing to, has some ideas and cares about the Greenway. I mean, to me, the Greenway is just one of our greatest assets.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Such an asset to the town.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see us helping if we can.
Anybody want to serve on that?
She said younger, so that.
No, I didn't say that.
She did not say.
I know
Put
you
your choice out.
It was okay for me to say it.
Somebody who could get there at a
Yeah.
strange time.
Did you say you had an idea of who? Did you have any ideas of something?
I was thinking of Dustin, the planner. He's not on the board.
Justin?
Justin. Sorry.
Justin. No. I think
We can consider.
we can certainly ask him and, you know, see whatever.
Because he has good training for that.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, he'd probably have a good idea. I mean,
Yeah,
find.
I'll be glad to see what we can work out.
Jim?
But if anybody on the board is interested and would like to do that, you know, I'm willing to stay as a rep, but I
Well,
just,
just
I
for-
feel like I'm not doing anything right now. It's just,
It's gotta be very frustrating for you.
yeah, it is.
But you gotta take care of you first. so.
Right.
And the county pays for the one maintenance person
Yeah.
that takes care of all of it.
Yeah,
Are they a 501c3?
yes.
Marcus took
Anything
those
else?
there to get all the picnic, or
That's the main
the
thing.
fishing benches out.
I'd like
The river
to,
those
I'd
days.
like to catch whoever did all
I
that.
mean, to have 4 that was in.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
I had nothing
actually,
better to do. I
actually
took
three were
time.
in,
That took a
one
lot of
turned
time.
over, one turned over, and then they broke
I
one
know,
and
I
get it
I was
out.
hoping they would do that
But
this year. but-
for what?
Berlin had a very good point.
What?
Apply for the nonprofit funding.
Yeah, I wondered why they, and I asked them that a year ago when I joined, I asked them why they didn't.
And I know we said- yeah, they just didn't have their act together. And they didn't have a lot, they're gonna close the shop because they're actually losing money on the shop.
Mm.
And, you know, just a lot of, it's not a good place for a shop because there's nothing around it, you know. People don't think of going there, a lot of things.
Anything else?
Maybe they make it a restaurant again.
Yeah.
With the water.
Water wheel.
Yeah.
Have you ever
Water
thought of
wheel
renting
restaurant.
it out for meetings?
Berlin.
It might be a good spot. I
Bob,
think to rent
I
out.
don't have anything in particular.
Give us what's not particular. I know you got some. All right. Farrell?
No, I don't have anything other than what we have here, unless you want to talk about police dogs and fire trucks.
You want to talk about that?
Okay. Patty?
One of the things I put on my list, and I remembered it coming up last year, and, you know, I don't know all the history on it and everything, and it seems like the white elephant in the room sometimes, but the Whitmire property. I would love to see us either make a plan for it or get rid of it, something, but it just seems to kind of just sit there and, okay, what are we going to do with it? Just something I wanted to throw out there. Something not really planning wise, but something I talked to someone about yesterday, this tent out back, to me seems like it's totally unused and that it's taking up spaces that people could be using for parking.
But I can tell you personally, as my husband helped build that, and the Vietnam vets are kind of disturbed it's not being used and it's going to waste.
Yeah.
And if you were to yank it down after all the work that they did to put it up, yeah, again, you're right, it
Yeah.
can be some parking space, but it could be a, and.
I mean, if we're going to use it,
Well,
that would be
but-
great, but.
Well, the Main
Maybe
Street was, not Main
advertising it.
Street, but
Picking.
not the picking, but the, whatever group it was called at whatever time, when they were having functions, they were trying to use it when they were having things and would put things down here. But I think that whole group is kind of fallen flat and they're not doing too much. But
Right.
maybe that's something that the store owners or something need to start building back up and use it, you know.
Like when they were doing Street Fest.
Yeah, different stuff. They were
Yeah.
doing bands and everything down there.
Bands and movies and
Yeah,
stuff down there.
yeah.
Oh, streets.
Yeah, streets.
Streets
yeah.
of Franklin.
Yeah. But yeah, I was just giving you
Yeah.
the con because every time Bill goes by, I'm like,
So maybe we could suggest to Tony that he spend some time thinking of possible uses from the Main Street.
that'd be a good idea.
The history of it, I think one in Berlin that they were gonna move picking down here.
Well, we did it while we were getting ready
We're gonna
to
do
move,
something
while we
temporarily.
did.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a temporary move of picking.
Okay. And that would be mine. I'm next. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
I know it, but I'm not through with Patty yet.
Maybe she's through with you.
You'll have to get in line. Anything else, Patty?
The only other thing I'd had on my list was just for us to look at the Memorial Park a little bit. I feel like it's really underutilized, and that there might be some other things that we could, you know, have down there. even looking at, down the road, it's got a great big grassy area. If you could do like concerts on the green down there or something that brings people, and that would start revitalizing that side of town, because to me, West Main Street's kind of just been forgotten. And it's an area that needs to be, I think, a little bit more movement going. The only problem I saw with utilizing Memorial Park more is the parking. We're very limited on the amount of parking there, so that would, but that's like, looking at down the road type.
And they're supposed to, on that, start this
I was gonna say,
project
yeah, of course.
restoring.
That's why we haven't done anything
Yeah.
more,
Right.
because we don't know what they're gonna do
Mhm.
to tear up what before we see what's left
Right.
when the job corps gets done. That's
It'll
why
be-
we
Because
backed
once
off
that's
doing
done,
several
it'll-
different things, yeah.
There'll be a lot of digging down there, because they'll take all those drains from the building and everything,
That's why I
redo all
said
those.
more of a plan down the road.
Did the senior games ever use that down there?
No, never worked
After
out.
they asked.
They were on
Yeah.
pickleball, yeah.
Yeah.
That Memorial
Wait.
Park, that is, if you remember a couple months ago, I brought it to the board's attention that we did receive the $20,000 grant. Scheduling wise, you're looking at the last meeting I had with, the LTLT, since they're helping with the stream restoration, we're looking at March. We'll start that. And they said from start to finish, you're looking at about anywhere, good news would be 3 weeks, worst case would be about 5 weeks.
But we need to just get it done.
So we'll start in
Early
March and
spring.
only
March.
take 3 to 5 weeks.
Then we look at it and see what we might do.
Okay. Joyce?
Yes, thank you. One of my concerns is, what are we thinking about doing with the gazebo? We set that money aside. Are we gonna do something to upgrade, do something with the gazebo? The money's been set aside to do something. A lot of the stores downtown were very excited we were gonna do something with it. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, are we gonna do something, or are we gonna let this, put the time in and leave it alone? Or does anybody feel, do we feel like we need, in some ways, when you're down there, it really does need an upgrading of speakers and, that kind of stuff, but does it need to be totally torn down? I don't know. Some people are saying it's crumbling, we need to do something with it. Everybody enjoys that, and again, of course, down the road, I would like to see us, I don't know how everybody else feels, re-looking at the type of entertainment that's going on down there. I hear many, many people saying that we could have a little more, different people there, something that would attract the 30-year-olds too, to come down and start bringing their families in.
Picking on the farm.
Yeah. I mean, I know the pros of, people say we're spending money on nothing, but when you go by there and see how many people are out there being entertained with it, it's,
It's used for a lot of different functions.
Yeah, it is, absolutely.
I don't see any problems, for at least for right now, kind of cleaned it up a little bit, paint, but let's put that money aside. I'd like to do something for sidewalk.
okay.
I
that's it.
thought that's what we had kind of, as a consensus,
Yeah.
maybe we didn't vote on it, but I kind of thought, as a
To use it.
consensus, we kind of decided
Yeah.
that we had so many different
People
options to
that-
do with it, and people were wanting to pull it into so many different directions. It
Put
would
it
be
for some-
better
that's
just to
it,
put
fine.
some money in it to
Anything we can do to
refurbish it.
improve that whole,
Fresh coat of paint.
Fresh coat of whatever.
It'd be fun.
and do we,
I looked at it, it's pretty solid structure.
Is the
Yeah, I
tent
think-
solid
I think that
on
is,
it?
well, the
The
kid,
tent up front on
I
it,
have
is
taped
it
those
native?
down there right now.
Because to me, it just,
It's only
it's not
needed,
very
if-
aesthetic.
only needs a brick rain.
it's needed if you're in there speaking and the sun is in your eyes.
Yeah.
It's more of a,
Mhm.
So to me, it sounds like we need to kind of have a plan of what are we going to do with it down the road.
Yeah, and maybe
Instead
just,
of,
yeah,
kind
just
of, okay,
nothing major, maybe it doesn't need
Yeah.
to be anything major, just little
you know,
things.
one thing might be interesting to see what Adam Drake does with his property and
That's true.
how that affects that whole section of town.
Yeah, because it could be
Might-
a different, totally different whatever's going on.
Yeah.
And do we know, have we heard definite of when the bridge is going to be started?
Yes, I will actually have a more in-depth update at your February board meeting. There's been a couple changes, and I'll discuss that further at that meeting, but plan-wise, Construction, from my discussion with DOT representatives last week, construction would take 18 months, and it's predicted as of now to start in 2016.
That's gonna be the soonest, that's ridiculous.
At least it's sooner than 2040.
Yeah. When you see that bridge that just went
Down and everything. But I'll have more details for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have they said anything about
Oh,
when they
one day
start
traffic's gonna be
construction, will they automatically reroute the traffic?
Legislation is gonna pretty much
So that's gonna be
mandate
the
we've
first
got-
thing
yeah,
that they do.
We're probably gonna be traffic rerouted for that 18 months.
Yes, sir.
Probably longer, maybe.
Yeah, I
You could bet on
said,
that.
oh,
You
yeah.
could bet on that.
Pilots, but they've done the test drilling, so
They have.
that's complete, so know how much percent is on it. You know, slow down the boat traffic.
Yeah, 'cause that whole traffic's been really getting intense.
Yeah.
Lake Emery Yacht Club.
Yeah.
Anything else, Joyce?
No, thank you.
Okay, I got a couple of things, y'all bear with me just a minute. One of the things I'm concerned about, and I talked to Chief Adams about it and the town manager, take a guess how many vehicle accidents we had in Franklin last year. Everybody got an idea?
163.
549
Accidents, well,
inside the city limits.
Is there
And,
an area that's more prevalent to them than others?
just
Just all
everywhere.
over.
You know, but that's something that sort of goes along with the speeding that's taking place in town. And I don't know what we can do about it, but talk to the chief. I hate in this economic times downturn that we're in that people get a speeding ticket because it's going to cost them several $100s plus 30% increase in their car insurance. I just wish people would voluntarily start paying attention to our speed limit signs that we have in the town. I don't know what it is. And the other thing, I'm hearing some folks that are concerned about the litter, and I don't know. They talk about we need to put the prisoners out there picking up litter. We ought to take the people that litter and put them out there. But those are two things that I'm hearing, and I'm sure y'all are too. Let me bring you up a little bit to date on the Scottish Tartan Museum. They are really doing a good job of digging themselves out of the hole that they were in.
Mary,
Yeah.
she's good.
Oh, I know.
She's real good.
And there's been some reorganization with the different groups that support the museum. And we're having a board meeting today on the museum. And things are looking a little more optimistic now. And the Appalachian Trail folks, we have reapplied to continue being a trail town. And more and more people, and an interesting thing, we saw a study the other day, I forget who sent it out. We've talked about advertising internationally about what we have here, and that the surveys of Europeans, what they most want to see in the United States, Great Smoky Mountains National Park.
I saw on the thing how many visitors they had. I was amazed.
It is. It really is. And we have a very active trail committee meeting now that comes under the umbrella of the town. And they've been just really working hard. And so our logo has gone over very well with the public. And that's basically all that I have. I just wanted to bring you up to date about the Scottish Tartan Museum and the Appalachian Trail.
Frogs.
Yeah, we do need, listen, who really owns the Greenway? Does the county own it? Does Duke own it? Who really owns
It's the
that?
county. Well, I think it's the county. Yeah, I think it's the
It is the
county, and
county.
then Duke has an easement. They were going back and forth over whether Duke would own it and the county would have an easement, but I think the way it worked out is the county owns
The
it.
county actually, I know that
And
the
Duke has
ordinance,
the easement.
this came up when the legislature passed that you can carry guns anywhere you want to, because the ordinance against the guns on the Greenway was a county ordinance. It was not a town ordinance. So I just wondered.
But the town police provide services.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, we do provide that.
But you're absolutely right. I would say of all the things that are used by adults in Macon County, the Greenway is probably number one.
And children too.
Well, I know, yeah, yeah.
It's amazing. That playground is just constant. I mean, if the weather is tolerable, there's children on that playground.
All right, well, that's all I had. Does anybody from the Fourth Estate want to, got any questions? Okay, we appreciate y'all giving up your Saturday this morning to
At least we didn't keep you.
come down here. All right, does anybody have anything else? Well, then, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn our annual retreat.
I remember to get started, so.
Well, yeah, we did.
We don't have to quit.
I just didn't formalize it.
Can we go back to the beginning?
Is that
We
a
need to go
race?
back to